Welcome everyone to Pommy and Oz. Hope we're all doing absolutely splendidly. It's Friday. We've got the practice game today versus Sydney. It's our last chance to see these boys in competitive, use that term as loosely and as hot as you will. So we're going to do a little bit of a preview of this game. We will have a preview of another random game because we're going to start doing that in the season. So look forward to that. If you're an opposition member, we're going to try and do one a week for that as well. But let's get straight into it. If you are a new around here, hit that like button, hit that subscribe. If you are wanting, tomorrow we are doing a giveaway, a sports Guernsey of your choice, valued up to 150. You can be a member. Make sure you click the link in the description to do that and have a bit of fun. We'll have a bit of a chat and we'll cover the week that was all together as a membership family. So let's get straight into it. So let's have a look. Dual Ruckman and TDK having support. I'm a big advocate here, and I think the first quarter kind of validates it, that when TDK does play in a dual ruck system, I think Carlton have a lot more creativity and a bit more danger. I think that TDK is a young ruckman, and you've got to remember that in the ruck state of things, I always say 2 real years are 1 ruck year. And although he was good last year, I think his strength is what you saw in that first quarter. The fact that he is highly athletic, highly energetic, and a value output. I genuinely am of the school that I think his ruck work is grossly overrated. I think he's just a very solid ruckman. Just okay. I don't think he's anything. I think where he becomes better is his work around the ground and how that can impact the game. Definitely, dual ruckman may not be the most en vogue thing in the AFL, but what we do see is teams genuinely play 2 people that can be in the ruck, that impact the ground in a way that one player can and complement each other. And I think PeterV and TDK are probably one of the best complements in the AFL today. I think that the way that TDK really has all of his tick marks, where you would have the X's in PeterV's game, and on the other hand, PeterV has all the ticks where you'd have the X's in TDK's game. And I'm really looking out for him, and we're going to give you 3 ones to watch on the back of that. And this is TDK, 19 games last year, age 23. We're going to class him as a ruck forward. TPI ranks him as the 21st best ruckman in the comp. And that's just done on the metrics of what we're looking at the rucks. But TDK, do you know what I mean? I think when you look at him when he played with PeterV, Carlton went at about 68% win rate, so I think it makes us a better side. And the way that he slots forward and gets them score involvements going, and the fact that he's an extra pillar, you've got to see, and it was real poignant in every game last year, when he does rest forward, if he's not impacting the game, he's subtly impacting the game because that height gravitases players towards him. And the more we can free up, players like that and Harry, and have them extra bodies, as well as Patrick Cripps, who floats through there, that's something that entertains me. So this is something that I want to see, particularly against Richmond and the Dogs. You saw that as Nankervis tired, as English tired, throwing TDK in 5-7 minute spurts, that's it. And really, I think when you look at the output from TDK, when he's around that 60 ruck contest mark, time, that's 60, as opposed to when we're going into the high 80s, 90s, his output is huge around the ground, particularly his ability to peel off, which Carlton like to utilise, and playing that defensive trap, but also having an extra target. And inside 50s need options for Carlton. At times it becomes very one-dimensional. We'll come on to how that may improve under Voss with the small sample size we've had of the new system. But I think that this is a real big year for TDK. He's out of contract. Do I buy into that brother thing? No, I don't. I just fail to see how someone could be motivated that by playing with their brother at 23. And I would be asking a lot of questions if that's a primary motivator. What I'm looking for, though, from TDK is, I think when he isn't being battered and bruised in the ruck, and it's a hard position to play, I think if Carlton can keep him 30% in the ruck, I reckon moving forward, that is going to help them. and win a lot more football matches. Defending and working in transition. This is a big thing for Carlton and something that has probably been the bugbear last year, particularly how Carlton operate. So I feel like visually that might be easy. So let's go over to the old tactics board. So let's get straight into that. So what I've developed here is I'm going to show you. So I want you to think that this is a key forward, right? So what we'll do is we'll make it simpler. We'll have a yellow guy as the key forward. So what we found last year is, particularly when Carlton were defending, they would deploy someone smaller. So if you remember a couple of years ago, Mickey Gibbons at the goal square, genuinely that was how Carlton defended. And Carlton would move their keys here. So the outlet ball is a key. It's a common place. And particularly when PeterV got injured, you had TDK here and TDK laid that trap. As injuries prevailed and as things got worse for Carlton, you actually find that what happens is when Carlton get to here, it's a long bomb in there. There's not much options and it kind of stops at halfway on their transition. What we did see last week, which was really interesting, was Harry got to stay in the square and Blake Acres, because he's medium size, got to play this role. So we found two things happen, right? One, the leads to the ball carrier were impeccable. And that is a big thing for Carlton. Carlton get very guilty of creating way too much space between the lines, particularly inside 50. But you do find when Carlton transition the ball, players are running away from the ball carrier. They're scared to go into trouble. Now, what we saw last week, which was really poignant, was Blake Acres making this run, making it available. And then when we talk about the overlap, you saw Sard would go on, receive the handball on, or he would go really deep and receive the ball here. Blake Acres would go forward. And then the half forward, say Zach Fisher, would come here. And then suddenly, you've still got your key, but players are going ahead of the ball. And that was, the running patterns had literally improved. And that's partly from the additions of Hollands and Acres and O'Brien. Three really fit lads. And it allows O'Brien to play kind of this role which we saw, which we'll come on to a bit later. But he was really looking for the handball received and looking for that extra pass. But the important thing for Carlton is leaving the key forward in the goal square. Because instead of it coming here and then literally stopping towards the end, Carlton have got something. So when you've got the key forward here, as you can see, what are we kicking to? What are you kicking to? It's almost impossible to get a very good entry inside 50, especially if you're playing a medium-sized player. So that is something that I'm really looking out for this week. How that overlap works and how that running towards the ball carrier, which was really poignant last week, particularly in the fourth, go back and watch it if you get 10, 20 minutes, of how they worked hard for each other. But that is going to win Carlton games. That is definitely Carlton's weakness, particularly their ability to not retain possession. And that is going to help them. So that is something that I'll be looking out for big style this week. And we talked about Blake Acres there. 20 games last year, 27 years old. He's a very tall man for a traditional winger. And 20th in the league for his position, which I think is really poignant. And I don't think he's an exciting signing. But I get Casemiro vibes with him. When you actually buy someone to do the job of what you're looking for, that really helps the club out. And that makes the club a lot more of a solid football club very quickly, as opposed to fabricating it with bit part players. And it makes players around him better. Look at George Hewitt. We went out and bought someone for the job instead of manufacturing it. And it's no surprise that Kennedy and Cripps feed off the fact that they've got an extra player. So Blake Acres will be one that I'm watching with a lot of intrigue. The next is spread. And something that Carlton get very guilty of is all becoming condensed. And that happened a lot last year, and it caused Carlton to get hit with sides who did the diagonal ball. See Adelaide, see Geelong, right? Of how easy it was to break that. And that is probably a creature of habit. It's probably a creature of consistently getting beaten, that trying to stay wide and keep your natural width is a problem. And when Carlton spread and create them lines and them droves of defensive pressure and in attack, it really helps create one-on-ones around the ground. It's very easy to defend against when everyone becomes clustered. It's harder when you keep that spread. And see Isaac Smith, he's a master of doing it. He doesn't ever negate into the corridor because he wants to keep that width and give them the outlet ball. And that is where we're going to see Carlton's pivot around the contest really poignant. And we saw it at the weekend. The fact that George Hewitt is the outlet ball at the back of a pack, and he has Cerra, he'll have Walsh when Walsh is fit, running towards him, and then he's got the ping pass. He can ping it out to O'Brien, ping it out to Akers if there isn't an option, and then spread from there and basically blossom into the final third. That is something that I'll be keeping a close eye on today, and something that I hope you guys do as well, because ultimately that is going to win Carlton games. And the guy that I'm looking at for this is Adam Cerra. I kind of like Cerra being that offload to Hewitt over Walsh, and I'll tell you for why. One, I really prefer Walsh running inside 50 and being that guy that overlaps. Traditionally last year, Walsh was the first receiver off Hewitt and Cerra ran on. I actually think that should be flipped because I personally feel Walsh running in to 50 does more havoc because the deeper ball entries, and that was prevalent last week. 36th TPI rank from 18 games is pretty impressive when the AFL is plethored with midfield. And also the back half of last year, he'd be looking at top 15 if he could sustain that. So this kid here is an elite footballer and someone that I think is incredibly important, especially when Walsh comes back, of how Carlton digress them two into the side. And finally, entries are the gateways to the flag. Inside 50s at Carlton are always something that's probably poignant. And last week, it was really obvious that Carlton had made a concerted effort to play one more pass to get it to someone 55 out and launch that ball as their emergency kick, if you will, into the goal square, allowing the Smalls an opportunity. And a player I'm looking at for here is Josh Honey. He was playing the Durden role. Durden's still not right. Opportunity is created in adversity, and adversity at the moment is Durden isn't fit. Honey's been begging for this opportunity. This is something that I'm looking for, and that is something that I'm really impressed as they get better of how hard the halfback, the half forward flanks worked to run towards the winger, but also how the leads to the pocket had changed from a one lead to a dual lead, and there was quite often off the ball you saw Motlop float into full forward and then the full forward float out, creating them options. And there was a few short kicks inside 50, kind of a la Richmond, who were looking for the better option. And that is something that I'm looking for. If Carlton can get closer to the sticks, it's a lot easier to having shots at goal. And that again comes from your running patterns and your willingness to work without the ball. And that is probably where I think Carlton differentiate. They definitely work hard with the ball. Incredibly hard. And there's no doubt about that. It's the players without the ball. I think the work needs to improve. And that is what I'm looking for this week. The result for me is secondary. I'm looking for these little staples though. These staples. Harry is very good at it. Charlie is another guy that, as much as I love him, some issues with where he leads in certain moments of time. I want to see him work really hard, like a Jeremy Cameron, to take that mark 55 out, give the ball away and try and get himself back to the contest. And that is something that you see Cameron do. Take a mark outside 65, goes to the corridor, pegs it forward. Because he's a late entrance inside 50, a lot harder to pick up. And that is something that I'm looking for, that give and go, which was very poignant last week, and how we link them in. But all in all, last chance to see them. Obviously, I would like a win, but like I say, I'm looking for structure, looking for things that can be replicated week one when we entertain Richmond at the G. That is so much more important to me. Hope you join in for the watch-along. I can't wait to welcome you all. I'm very excited about the watch-alongs returning. It should be a great game today. Until next time, have a safe weekend. Palm out.